We are live. All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome to the Space Water Podcast, exclusively here on Exploring the Ka on YouTube. And this is episode 69. Of course, we're sponsored by the Mystical Spiral Store.com. You guys can support us in the super chat or at PayPal. And we have an amazing guest tonight, the one and only Maria Wheatley. Maria has been for over a decade not only a friend but a longtime colleague, and her work is just amazing. Everybody, not only is she a second generation dowser, but she has an amazing series of books that she's been writing, and she's the authority on Stonehenge and megaliths in the UK and throughout the world. Maria, I really appreciate you coming back on the Space Water podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and I really do cherish our time that we have together and our correspondence that we've had over the years. And you not only keep it professional, but you also keep it real, and it's like a real friendship at the same time. It's not, there's no hidden agendas, there's no BS, right? So I really appreciate that, and I respect your work, and I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thank you for having me. And to be honest, Ra, I cannot believe it's a decade. That's just wow.
Right? I just looked the first time you were on. My very first radio show that you were on was Spiral Radio in 2015. 2015. So this is actually a decade. August 2015 it was. So
Wow.
that was the very first time. And then I didn't and then the next time I interviewed you was 2017. And then pretty much since then you've been on a few times a year, like twice a year I think, or something like that. Or we might have skipped a year here and there, but yeah, it's been a decade. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. I can't believe that. It's really incredible. Well, everybody, today we're going to be discussing various things, and especially you got to pick up Maria's new book. She was kind enough to just send me this beautiful gift in the mail. And Maria and I have been exchanging gifts for a number of years now. And she's a supporter of my website. She's gotten various things over the years. And guys, I already started to go through this book. I just got it 2 days ago, and I'm halfway through it. You can see my little mark. I'm halfway through it, so I don't want to reveal too much that's in the book today. I want you guys to pick it up, but there is something that I wanted to ask Maria if we can share.
Sure.
Um, is it all right if I read the quote that you had from, was it your father?
Of course.
Is it okay if we read that
Yes,
at the beginning? Because
indeed.
I found that really incredible. So at the beginning of Maria's book, Secrets in Stonehenge, where you guys got to pick it up right now because she talks about the harmonics of Stonehenge, all incredible stuff. She has old portrayals of drawings that people have done of Stonehenge, all sorts of things. So she even has like Scythian information on the Scythians, the long skulls. I mean, it's incredible. So her father was a dowser before her. She's a second generation dowser, and she has a quote from Dennis Wheatley at the beginning of the book. It says, "One of the best kept secrets of Stonehenge's geomantic activation is the geodetic magic square. When it manifests in the earth, it becomes a gateway, and it can be opened, closed, or its frequency raised by the power of 5, 10, or 15. The magic square became associated with the low shu square of feng shui, but silently it gives access to other earth realms far beyond its customary use in the art of placement." I found that amazing. And can you explain to us a little bit about the magic square?
Yes, for example, the Earth can manifest spiral patterns called a geospiral, circular patterns called a primary halo, lines and meandering forces of which we know. But one of its best kept secrets is that it can manifest a square-like shape, just like a circle, just like a spiral. And we can project, well, magicians can project numbers upon these squares and transform it into a magic square. And that's also what the Kogis recognize. The Kogi Indians of Colombia, they say that the spiral is important, the line is important, meaning lays and grids and things, and that the square is important as well. And that was definitely incorporated into Stonehenge for magicians and alchemists over the periods of time to use and to utilize.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Which Indians? These are native Indians to which area that you mentioned?
uh, the Kogi Indians in
Kogi.
Colombia. A master
Wow.
dowser that taught me and my father went over to study with the Kogi Indians. And for example, if a child, a young child, showed the ability to be psychic, sensitive, for the priesthood or shamanic world, if you will, then they were withdrawn into kind of like a twilight light for the first 7 years or so, and then they were exposed to the light where they said they could see the shapes of Mother Earth, squares and spirals and circles and lines, as I mentioned, and also their color, because the Earth produces 13 Earth colors. And they became the mamos, the priesthood. And the master dowser that got taught by the Kogis taught myself and my late father. So I'm very privileged to know a lot of different interpretations of Dowson and Earth energies, not just British or Chinese, but going to places as far as South America.
That's very interesting. And are these the Kogi Indians, the children that are sensitive, are they connected to megalithic sites as well?
Well, they have their own way of ceremony and they have their own way of, their magical ways and beings. But I think that the knowledge that they had, the master dowsers can then project into their own indigenous monuments and places of power and of worth. And that's what, for example, I was doing. So someone like yourself, Ra, in New York, that I know you have an intimate connection with Balanced Rock and some other sites that you have showed me. It's about looking at those through another culture's eyes to
Yeah,
understand it deeper. And that's what I've done.
that's interesting. Yeah, the reason why I asked you if the sensitive children of those tribes are connected to the megalithic sites, because I feel like, and you discuss much of it in your books, that these sites, most of them, I guess, if not all of them, are sort of offline in a way. At one time, I feel they were connected
Oh, yeah.
in sound and light, and maybe even connected to generating what we see as these plasmoids.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. There is no separation because if you projected lines and energies, and also the water, the very very deep waters that I spoke about with you 10 years ago, probably,
Yeah.
the yin water deep below the ground. Water calls to water. So, for example, a spring will go to the sea, or will become a river, and it will go to the sea. And inside of the earth, everything links up and has memory of that as well. So these ancient sites above the deep water and even underground water, groundwater, they have the memory of the past that we can tap into as well. And because time isn't linear, it can contain, past, present, and indeed future.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well said. Now, did your father come across the magic square and the 5, 10, and 15 through dowsing?
Yes and no. That was again through a master dowser, the one that learned with the Kogi Indians. He'd introduced other master dowsers selected from around the world to be shown this particular technique. Now,
Interesting.
the Saturn square contains a particular order of numbers, for example, and each way that you add them up in a diagonal way
Yeah, the
across,
Sator.
yeah,
The
yeah,
Sator, yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That will come to 15 and its magical properties are 5, 15, and 10. So you can raise it through that. And that's like you said, in my introduction is also linked to Lo Shu in Feng Shui or Feng Shui, depending on how you want to count it. But there's a difference.
Hmm.
With this magic square, it's not just about the art of placement. You can raise the frequency of place with it.
Wow.
That's what the old geomancers were doing, rather than hanging a wind chime in the west
Yeah.
or in the east. There was much, much deeper metaphysical knowledge that kind of got lost and changed into this art of placement. The art of placement is good, of course it is, anything that brings harmony, but it's not just about that, not in the esoteric metaphysical understanding of Lo Shu.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, I know you've been to many sites all over the world, especially in the UK. Now, do you think that one time many of these sites had certain points on them where something like lodestones were put, like magnetic spots, like like little magnetic stones that sort of are gone because they were smaller and lost to the time. People have taken them or whatever. But do you think that there's were certain spots at certain these sites where there was a certain like lodestone that are now missing that was a key
So
element?
yes, quartz, for example, and some form of lodestones have been found at ancient sites. But we must remember it's very difficult because some of them got ransacked by the
Yeah.
Romans throughout antiquity. But the lack of evidence doesn't mean no evidence. And what I foresee with the use of lodestones, for example, is using the magnetic frequencies of the earth in her light and sound, her color and sound frequency that can enhance that, and vice versa. It's about
Yeah.
working together. When two components come together, it really does work, whatever that is, whether it's the yin and the yang or what we choose to work with. It's the power of place, and we mustn't underestimate the power of place.
Yeah, I wonder if many of them were at one time magnetic lodestones like meteorites, thunderstones.
Definitely. Definitely, Ra. When I take guests around Stonehenge and
Yeah.
Avebury and many other sites beside, one thing that I find a lot of is meteorites. And I actually
Wow.
pick them up and give them to guests. I find that, and I find also ochre, a lot of ochre around ancient
Oh
sites,
my
whether it's
God. That is so
Charco
incredible.
Canyon. Yeah, whether it's Charco Canyon or ancient Egypt or Stonehenge, I find red, gold, and brown ochre alongside
Oh, Maria,
meteorites. The two come
we have to
together.
get together more with the information because you have this she's one of the rare people in the world that does tours at all of these sacred sites throughout the world. People, if you have not found out about Maria Wheatley through my shows over the years, check it out because she goes all throughout the world doing tours at sacred sites. So she knows the landscapes. She knows the what's going on at these sites, right? So I have a theory that these sites are magnetically pulling in meteorites. Meteorites are carrying
Mm,
the the components of life, of creation, right? They're carrying literally proteins, bacterias, all of this elements of life that can seed planets.
mm. That's really interesting because it certainly correlates to what's in the actual landscape. So the evidence is the evidence. It's
Yeah.
there. But there was, there is rather a guy called Duncan Steele, Dr. Duncan Steele, and he worked with Space Guard looking for near Earth objects as part of a program with astronomy. He's an actual astronomer. And what he noted was that Stonehenge has its avenue and its kind of alignment to the northeast, which most people project as the sun or the moon, for instance. But Steele takes it that one step further. He says, for instance, that it could have been pointing to a comet breaking up its debris, and it would have been fireworks seen at Stonehenge phase one, and that some of these sites were linked to this cosmic event that would have put down in the ground lots of meteorites. And that's his theory. And when you look into it, it does correlate to particular dates and particular times, whether it's early monuments or the later phase of Stonehenge as well. So I would say if you're looking into meteorites, there is the evidence that part of Stonehenge could have correlated to pointing to the Taurids and Comet Enki that was loaded at that time. Okay. And like I said, it could have been cosmic fireworks. So, yes, there is meteorites because it could have been in alignment to that. As yourself, Ra, I'm very open minded. I don't just say one mantra, oh, it's the sun and the hailstone, it's the rising sun at midsummer. I think the ancients were far cleverer astronomers than just looking at a solar yearly cycle.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I'm gonna find for you in a second the pictures because I did research. I'm actually really close friends with Professor Chandra Wickramansingh.
I know you are. Well,
Yeah,
well done.
we've been exchanging and in correspondence, and he's put me in correspondence with Robert Temple and different people over the years. So I've got to share information with some people probably that I shouldn't because it's ended up in certain people's books. But uh,
Oh, wow.
uh, I showed Professor Chandra this a couple of months ago. We have all these near Earth objects, like you mentioned,
Mm.
and all of them seem to have the same markings on them, like these asteroids just lurking there, right? And they have like concentric circles inter overlaying each other,
What,
and
on the actual object,
on
Ra?
the actual object itself,
Goodness.
I gotta show
I
you if I
haven't
could.
heard that before, in all honesty.
I found them, and I
Well
was
done.
looking at the because they have them on NASA, what they look like, and they have. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up for you. Hold on, Maria, you're gonna shit. This is cool actually. You're gonna
No,
you're
no,
gonna.
it's great to have new information and it's great to look and explore theories.
All right, so
I can
here's
see this.
so here's just a few of them. This is all of these are near Earth objects. Here's asteroid 52246 Donald Johanson. You see the marking on it,
Yeah, I can see the two circles, one above another.
right? And now let's go to asteroid 2024 PT5. Concentric circles overlapping each other, right? Some
Yeah,
of them almost exactly. Look at another one from 2024 PT5, almost exactly like Donald Johanson. This
yes,
is
it's
this is
reflective.
yeah, this is 2024 PT5, and this one was where was Donald Johanson one that we had before? Oh wait, hold on. This is Donald Johanson. Look at how similar,
Mm, they're very reflective.
right? So what's the probability of just two near Earth asteroids, like we see here, having almost identical markings and concentric circles like that? They have to mean something more. They look
Um,
too. What are those?
yeah. So you've looked into this, you've discovered this. What are where is your ideas, your theory, your understanding going?
They almost seem like some kind of sigil or some type of, you know, parabolic thing. I don't know. It looks almost like it's a construction. It doesn't look like it's natural and random. It looks like a,
It
you
Yeah,
know,
it looks like a marking to some regards.
yeah. And it's similar to stone circles and different things that we have on the planet. Crop circles even.
It's interesting the observation of that. That is for sure.
And the way
I
I
mean,
put it to Professor Chandra, I said, as an astronomer and a mathematician,
okay,
what's the probability that a few of these near Earth objects would have these same markings on them? And he's like, "Oh, you're right. It's astronomical. Like it wouldn't. It's doesn't seem natural." He agreed.
Mm.
you
Well,
know,
that's
because
really good confirmation to have from somebody with such a wealth of knowledge and such an outstanding person in the realms of astronomy and cosmology to say such a thing.
and yeah, and if these are the ones that are lurking around our Earth, like these are ones that are just in orbit around our Earth, maybe they're and these are carrying the components of life. There's compounds of life in there, like bacterial phages probably and that carry ancient DNA and all sorts of things probably in there, all sorts of compounds and frozen in there. So if there's a way that these things maybe could be broadcasting that in a sort of frequency coming from it, you know, who
Well,
knows?
that's interesting because we know there's a lot of different sound and frequencies and color energies that the Earth emits, and as above and so below. So if we take that theory one step further and say, that the Earth is emitting this, I see no probability why places on the moon, and I've looked into Mars with there's a local author on Mars in England called Mary Bennett, and I've had long discussions with her. And I've looked at the underground waters on Mars and how they manifest circles, concentric circles, and spirals. They will, and that's NASA saying that groundwater, not me. Yeah, for instance. So I think it is. It's an as above and so below. What's reflective, is that these your markings rather could be containing that kind of message, almost like a message in a bottle, but it's a message in an asteroid, so to speak.
That's funny. That's so true. Yeah, I wasn't planning on sharing that with you at all. You know, that just came up. It just happened to came up. But I think that it's incredible that you're finding meteorites near these sites all the time. And that to me is incredible because I think that's
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I've got some in my home, and some of them are very large. And we do know that ancient sites are about sound frequency. And one thing I do know about megaliths is that they can communicate to one another. For example, it's called crosstalk. Recently, I've measured my brain waves against certain concentric circles that the megaliths emit. If you imagine putting a stone in the water and then it ripples out, and I'm measuring those ripples coming from a stone, for example, then they release particular frequencies: 133 hertz, which some would say is very healing, 285 hertz, which can repair damaged DNA. And at the same time, my brain is going into delta, which is, supposed to be when you're in very, very deep relaxation. But I'm talking to people. And also, with a megalith stood up like this, one of the apex of a stone is releasing energy, and some people say that is directly linking to the cosmos. So if we say they are like antennas rather than just standing stones, okay, then the very top of that stone is releasing energy upwards. And who's to say that something like an NEO, a near Earth object, isn't kind of making some kind of impression upon that? And I think the planets do. I think the planets influence megaliths. I think the sun influences, and the moon, and why not the asteroid belt? All of this, I think, our ancients were fully aware
100%.
of in their understanding and interpretation of these sites.
100% Maria. I totally agree with you, especially the sun. The way school teaches us about the sun is like archaic. It's actually not even a hydrogen gas sphere like they say. It's a plasma sphere, a plasma star, and it's streaming like streams of plasma that are, in my opinion, connected and being absorbed and broadcasted by megalithic sites, especially dolmens. Like when you have a dolmen, I discussed this with my buddy Glenn Kreisberg. Like when you have a dolmen, you have the negatively charged ground with the positively charged atmosphere, and it's lifted off the ground. It's like lifting a guitar string off the fretboard so it can vibrate and resonate the cosmic rays that it's absorbing, right? And I
Mm,
and I think that these sites are literally connected to like funnels tunnels of plasma coming right from the sun. Especially look at Newgrange and places like that, where right on winter solstice you got a stream of plasma that comes right in a certain window, right? And then
Mm.
it's being broadcasted and amplified, and it's a doorway as well.
Yes, I mean, yes, that is the case. Plasma is playing a very big role in the science of megaliths, and
Yeah.
also at dolmens throughout the UK, Ireland, and places like Sardinia as well. I've looked into
Oh my
dolmens.
God, that's the
They,
best place.
yeah,
Sardinia.
it's
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
they live long lives there.
Dude,
They're
yeah,
all
they have some of the best longevity, don't
yeah,
they?
they
And
do.
and they're and Maria, and they're not eating the best diet. They're eating olive oil and cheese, and but it's like fresh,
Yeah,
like it's not right, but
yeah.
it wouldn't be like they're eating like a vegan diet, or they're eating just really good elements though.
Yeah, they're natural and fresh and
Naturally,
home
yeah.
produced. And when we eat, and then I'll go back to dolmens, and when we eat off the soil that we're used to, yeah, those minerals come back into us. Whereas if I import peppers from
That's so true.
Spain, then it's not the minerals that I'm used to absorb in my bloodstream. So I do try to buy locally. But
That
returning to the dolmen phenomenon, they're also always throughout the British Isles and elsewhere connected to two aquifers that produce a huge amount of electromagnetic energy as well. So you've got that coming out of the ground as well as an input of sun plasma. And also sunlight plays its role. For instance, at sunrise and sunset, we have the predominant red long wavelength beaming at us with microwaves, radio waves, all in. And a stone that has piezoelectrical properties, such as the ones at Stonehenge and elsewhere is too, then it can transduce those kind of light rays of the red band, that long wave, and those microwaves, it transduces that to sound. Yeah, it can
wow,
transduce it to
yes.
sound. And then it produces and radiates through that stone ultrasound. And I know the Dragon Project that recorded ultrasound through transduced piezoelectrical material through the long wave of the sun. And that's another reason why we have sun alignments to standing stones. It's not about looking at a pretty sunset as thousands gather at places. It's about the science of megaliths. And that's a metaphysical understanding of light, plasma, and sound.
I love that. That's so beautifully put. Now, I have a question. Do you find, because you mentioned underground water, now I didn't prepare questions. I figured we'd just do this,
So,
it's better like this, right? You mentioned underground water. Do you find that a lot of these sites, especially the ones that are specifically made of granite, red granite or what have you, granite, where there's underground water at those sites? Because I'm thinking that the sites that, and I've discussed this before with my friend Glenn as well. Spots that have a lot of underground activity that make natural shocks and vibrations that would sort of make the quartz within the granite rub together and produce the light from the cold plasma, the piezoelectricity effect that you mentioned.
Exactly. Most stone circles, regardless of whether they are sandstone like Stonehenge and Avebury, a form of like limestone at Rollright, or granite as in Cornwall and the Merry Maidens, for example, just to cite a few stone circles, they are always under very, very deep water with a lot of groundwater
Wow.
as well. You've got the two different types all of the time. And even if you
Incredible.
go to a Mexican pyramid, for example, you have underground cave systems that have underground water and then the very, very deep water besides. So when we look at ancient sites, we need to think about it as one thing after another, after another, after another, rather than, oh, it's just across another place. Oh, it's just this. It isn't. A power place has numerous different forms of activity and its release in sound continually at day and night, and that's ultrasound. I have also recorded infrasound being released at standing stones as well.
Wow.
These are out of
No,
our
you have.
audible
That's
range,
amazing.
but it's the proof is there. I've recorded it. It cannot go by unnoticed, and that's what the sounds of the megaliths make. And some sensitive people can actually sense and feel, as I'm sure you are one of those. When we go to ancient sites, we just have a sense of what's going on, the ripples beneath the ground, the incoming energies from the sun and the moon, comets, asteroids, the solar family.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why I'm so connected with the balance rock. I've already envisioned beneath it is an underground water chamber. There's water running behind it anyway, and right back there. So, and I think it spirals, and I think there's something magnetic underneath there as well, whether it's a lodestone or some sort of something that was placed down there in a chamber or something. Guys, you got to pick up Maria's book too. I don't want to go too much into it, but she does mention one thing in the book, the Greater Trilithon. Can you mention a little bit about that amazing stone without revealing too much what's in the book? Because everybody, like, if you're just joining us in the chat room, Secrets of Stonehenge just released. Get it right now, right now. Don't forget Secrets of Stonehenge.
Well, the Greater Triathlon is a part of a triathlon in a setting at Stonehenge. So you're on the inside of Stonehenge. You've walked beyond the lintel stone circle, and now you have five, I believe there was six triathlons in front of you. And I'll talk about Triathlon 51 and 52 if you're a geek with numbers like I am at ancient sites. But Triathlon 51 was magical, and in the 1940s and 50s, I inherited the notes of the curator and caretaker of Stonehenge for more than 25 years. Okay. He was the
Wow.
curator. He wrote notes, and I've got those notes. And he said this about Trilithon 51. No matter if it was a drought, no matter if it was a winter's day of ice cold, Trilithon 51 had a hole in it 2 feet long, which you could put your arm in. Okay, so it's got a big hole where you could put your arm in, and that used to magically fill up with water. And even if you stared at it, it didn't, but it would fill up with water. And this is from the curator of Stonehenge. And he said it had healing properties, and people used to cure. It is said to cure
Whoa.
eczema and lots of different ailments beside. And what did the then Ministry of Works do? A government department. They concreted up the hole with plastic and concrete. So this is the devastation side of Stonehenge. And I think, that Tom Gorey, he was a witness to different elements and different archaeological digs, and he disagreed with what the archaeologists spoon fed us. Okay, so he was considered a bit maverick. I'd just like to say, Ra, that I have been selling at Stonehenge shop, tourist centre, for 10 years. I've contributed to their books. I've contributed my own books to sell there. Okay. And I was selling there for 10 years. As soon as The
Wow.
Secret History came out, revealing things about the royal family,
They cut
magical stones, long skulls, I got banned. All of my products are banned, and they didn't even communicate why. I communicated several times. So the truth of the matter is that there are magical properties to these stones that defy modern day physics.
Wow,
They go beyond
no
that.
decency to call you either, or nothing.
No, no, and then no reply to my email. And just for devilment, I used to email them once a month asking why for 6 months, and they never replied in 6 months.
You've been speaking publicly about the same information, maybe not all in a book, but you've been speaking about the secrets of Stonehenge way before this.
Yeah, but I think the revelations that I had in the book that I hadn't spoken about, like the magical properties of the
Yeah.
stone, the metaphysical science behind it, I think that's what was the crux of the matter, because I have spoken about the long skulls for quite some time. I don't think it was that. I was thinking of what the government has done to certain ancient sites.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was like, she already mentioned the skulls, so
Yeah, I don't think it was that, you see. It was me talking about in one ancient antiquarian report going back to the 16th century, for example.
yeah, the that 1500, yeah. That
One of the
yep.
first reports said that King James the First of England, King James the Sixth of Scotland, stole a stone and he took it to St. James's Palace. They even told you where they took that second altar stone. So I was
Wow.
saying that the plan of Stonehenge is inaccurate. The antiquarians are telling us there was two altar stones and one was taken to St. James's Palace. Well, let's get it back. So it's those controversial ideas that I feel was the issue. But it's not just me. It's a lot of other people get these complications, but it doesn't stop the research from rolling on and revealing to the public a different narrative.
You know what? It's because there's truth to what you're discussing because how many people have had all different types of theories of what Stonehenge has been used for before, and I'm sure they wouldn't, judge them like that. So it's probably because there's truth to what you're doing. And I'm not going to show the picture from what's in the book, guys. I want you to pick up the book, but there's an amazing picture that an artistic rendition that someone did from the 1500s of Stonehenge that you got to check out in Maria's book. It's really incredible, and it's worth the price of admission alone to get that. Really cool.
And what I think is, well, when we look to the antiquarian reports, it's part of the history of a place because they went there and they recorded it and they recorded what it looked like. And even after the 16th century, in the 17th century, you had an antiquarian called John Aubrey, for example, and he was questioning the number of trilithons there. He said, is there six? Is there seven? They were questioning it. Then William Stukeley, a Freemason, came along and he said there are five trilithons, and English Heritage have followed that narrative ever since. But prior to that, people were questioning. One of my sources said to me, Ra, I know where the sixth trilithon is buried. Yeah. So they buried it in the 1930s, according to my source. And
Wow.
in the book, I actually put an arrow to it so that you can find it for
Yeah.
yourself. It comes out as an anomaly on LiDAR, and it comes out as an anomaly as in a photograph from that era, if you see what I mean, because it's a white
Yeah, you
patch.
got the
It looks
LiDAR in there.
freshly
Yep.
dug.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks freshly dug in the 1930s, for example. So I think the main thing is that we need to question the about ancient sites. If somebody tells you, oh, it's like this, A, B, and C, do your own research because maybe you'll find it isn't A, B, C after all, and you can dig and delve and reveal something hitherto unknown.
Yeah. I wonder how much megalithic stones just in the UK alone were taken and used even at royal palaces, maybe as cornerstones in some kind of construction of their palace or building foundations of certain places for royalty or someone important. Do you think that's possible?
Well, what we do know is that in particular eras in the early medieval period, from about the 11th century, when churches were starting to be built of stone, they were timber previous to that. But when they were starting to build of stone, they used to break up stone circles and, just as you've described,
Oh,
use them as cornerstones, for instance. So if they're doing that to um, churches, like you've just said, I've often mooted that is this the case for particular stately homes that are in close proximity to some stone circles? I think it's in all probability because in the 16th century, especially, they were classified as healing. The stones of Stonehenge were classified as healing. Even from the 12th century before, Geoffrey of Monmouth informs us, no stone at Stonehenge doth not have healing power. That's what he said in the 12th century. And if you mixed water with a scraping of sarsen stone at Stonehenge, it was considered curative. So they had these magical curative properties to do with water. And that's what I think that the stately homes wanted. They wanted these healing, magical stones within their own grounds.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense to want it, but I mean, you're when you're taking it off of where it creates the magic, will it have the same magic when you remove it?
It won't be plugged into the earth energies. But one thing and a dowsing phenomena that you can do is, let's
Imprint
say
it.
there's a stone missing in a stone circle. Yeah, let's just say one got taken down and we haven't got a complete circle anymore. In dowsing, you can use what's called remnants dowsing, and it's literally
Wow.
tracing out the missing stone. It's like
I
when you
love it.
go towards it, the rod will bounce back towards you. So you could get a depth, a rough depth, like 9 feet wide by 10 feet tall
I love
or
it.
whatever. You're going to be out by a few inches, because of the displacement of the ground, not being on the old surface level. But it will give you a near enough reflection of what was there before in remnants dowsing. And it's quite fun to do as well.
That's very interesting. Now, I know from me being at the Balance Rock and various places that I've gone that I've gotten telepathic visits at the site from certain things, whether it was symbols or a knowing sometimes that came to me or ideas that are generated. Have you found that the more you visit these sites, sometimes that you'll get like a knowing, or even your research all of a sudden will be more focused on something, and it seems like almost that it like without even realizing it, that something was telepathically brought to you at that site. Because I feel like they collect memories and certain people that go there are guided to come there to receive
Mm.
that.
Absolutely. Like I said before, the deep waters have memories, the
Yeah.
Akashic record of place. And besides of that, for example, most ancient sites, when you enter them, whether it's Edfu Temple in Egypt, Stonehenge, Balanced Rocks energy field, you're in an altered state of consciousness. It will naturally put your brain into delta, theta, and alpha. It will do that to your brain. I was measured, my brain waves were measured last year. Okay. And that is proof. That's what happens. It brings you into sync with an altered state of consciousness. When we have that state of consciousness, magic is afoot because we're more sensitive, we're receptive. And for me, it's the ancestors that guide me, it's the ancestors that speak to me. And so that is my guidance, but that doesn't mean that's going to be for everyone. You'll
Yeah,
find your own way of communicating at an ancient
of
site.
course.
And
Yeah.
yes, you're right, it does inspire research and it does something else for me. It connects me deeply to the place. It connects me to the people of the past, the energies, and having that intimate relationship with the stones and with that which went before.
Yeah. Are you familiar with a lot of the tumulus structures?
Well, in the UK and
Yeah.
Europe, yes.
Yeah, our majority of them are made of granite, right? Like Saint
The
Michel, I think is.
Yeah, it depends which kind of part of, for example, in England, you get tumuluses that are made of earthen and chalk, for example, and you get some that are made of quartz in Ireland that are called cairns, and some of them do contain granite. So in the British Isles, it depends what kind of part of the country that
Yeah.
you're in to the style of it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, what I'm getting I'm getting towards is even the cairns, the ones that are like the beehive shaped,
Mm,
when you have it like stacked on top.
yeah,
In John
wooden.
Burke's book, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, I think it is Seed of Knowledge, Stone
Yeah.
of Plenty. John Burke, he proposed an idea that the tumulus structures, especially the ones made of granite and the beehive tumulus structures, that because they're sealed and there's just a little hole at the top that
Mm.
the air inside is ionized from,
Ionized, yeah, yeah.
yeah, from the granite.
I've studied his book. I've got two chapters in The Secret History of Stonehenge because I think he was right for the wrong reason. And I have taken his work to what I believe is the next level.
Nice.
Now, I think what is going on in tumulus, and you don't just need a tumulus, I've proved this, and I had agricultural experiments on mine like he did. Okay. Now, it's the earth energy, particular earth energy patterns at particular times of the month are activated. You place your seeds in there on the earth energy. So you don't necessarily need a tumulus. You need the earth energy pattern, okay? But they are commonly at tumuluses, at pyramids and elsewhere. And that seed will grow twice as fast and twice as straight. In my agricultural trials as well, I withdrew water and they stayed more healthy and they didn't wilt as fast as the other control seeds. So I think it is about ionization is produced by underground water. I've measured it and that is an actual fact. Wherever you get that, that's the ionization qualities as well as mixed in with stone. Yeah, or as well as mixed in with earth. Now, what I did beyond Burke as well in his book Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, I realized that the ancients had a farming template. It doesn't matter where in the country you go, they use the same template, the same template. And now you're only going to repeat that if it works. You're not going to repeat something if it's a load of rubbish or trash, as you guys say. So I looked at the template and realized that what the ancients were doing, they knew which earth energies help which particular species. So it wasn't just about charging your seeds, it was knowing where to plant them. And that's why we have lynchets on the north side. They used to plant in the Bronze Age on the north. Now that is problematic because it doesn't get sun, but they were producing grain and foodstuffs on the north side of hillsides. And also, there's an actual fact, Ra, which you might like this fact. Up until the advent of chemical fertilizers in the 1950s, nitrogen as one example, they could not beat, prior to putting chemicals on the land, the yield in the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. It couldn't be beaten, not all through the medieval period, not all through the Industrial Revolution, up until they started using chemicals. That's because the ancients knew where to plant, and I recorded every single earth energy that they were using.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's horrible, man. Everything has changed on this planet. And we're losing, especially in the United States. We don't know any of the history here. It's really horrible. Really horrible. At least in some of the other countries, it's been preserved a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, the between the pesticides and all the chemicals that they're using, I mean, the land. I think these sites are crying out for us to help them again, put them back
Oh,
online.
oh, absolutely. And this year in Vermont and in Buckinghamshire in Britain, I've been offered land to do a big agricultural test. I've done
Oh
small
wow.
agricultural tests because what I want for the future, for my children's children
Oh, I would
and
love to be
the
involved with
future.
electroculture at those tests. I could help with the electroculture with the copper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm open, as you know, to all different disciplines. I know my discipline is the earth and earth energies, and that's how I work. But you and other people can bring in different disciplines. You know, I'm fully aware of the expanse that this could have. I can tell you the where, yeah, and then it can be enhanced. Yep, it can be like that. And then we are not slaves to companies like Monsanto. We are not slaves to being told how to grow food and how to damage the earth. The way forward is going to be embracing Mother Earth's energies and working in harmony with the natural cycles of the earth.
Yeah, it's so true. I love it. And one guy in the chat, David Von Valet, He's talking about how the churches are powerhouses, and it's because of the granite. The granite churches are powerhouses. And it's true. I mean, even Maria, you know, of course, but not just uh quartz is inside the granite. You got magnetite
Yeah.
as well. So you got like electricity and magnetism going on
Mm.
here.
Absolutely. And then you add into that the electromagnetic qualities of earth energies, and then you add into that as well the color frequency of the earth energies. And like I said, there's 13 earth colors. And then you add in the astronomy of place. Yeah, you have a recipe that can cook up cook up a massive cauldron of wisdom that can be used for the future. And that's about people coming together and sharing their knowledge base and being allowed to grow our foodstuffs again. Yeah, because I know part of in the United States, it's very difficult to grow foodstuffs, I've been told, on one's land. But at the end of the day, by working in harmony with the earth, then we can move forward together as humanity, and then realize that the ancients had it right. Yeah, they had it right. It's us that's got the disconnect. And if we get that connection back, and if we reach out to one another and embrace the future boldly and wisely and with love, then that's the formula that will grow food and grow light and grow love in our hearts.
I agree. Have you ever been to Worcester County in Massachusetts? Worcester.
No, I think I went to in Massachusetts. I'm trying to think. I'm sometimes get your states a little bit
In New
muddled. I
England,
think
it's
I
New England. I know there's like because there's like 275 beehive chambers.
Yeah, I went to one recently in Vermont, near Woodstock.
Okay, yeah.
It was in the autumn or the fall, as you chaps say, and that had a window box identical to Newgrange, and it had granite, and it's called Calendar 2. But what I always talk to is the locals, and what the locals call that ancient site isn't Calendar 2. They call it Half Moon
Oh, yeah,
because
that
it's
one's on
literally
private
like
land, right? That's on private land. Yeah.
I got permission to go there. I've got permission to
Wow.
visit. If I go next time, I've got permission to visit places in Vermont that haven't been visited by people. I'm English. I can open doors to the hearts of the American
Yeah.
psyche.
And you and,
Okay.
and you were given access to Mystery Hill, right?
Yes, I got private access to the inside where Dennis Stone is the owner, and he's a great curator and he's a great custodian. His
New
father
Hampshire.
owned it. Yeah,
Yeah.
in New Hampshire, and it's a wonderful place. And Dennis gave me private access to lie down on the what he
Wow.
calls the table, and I decoded the place. I realized that Dennis had these amazing places that he could understand. Why is this here? Why is that there? As soon as I started to decode it and figured out an ancient water ritual, because the table stone at America's Stonehenge is identical to one I visited in Wales, which was used in a water ritual. And at the America's Stonehenge, you've got a stone-lined well. It isn't a well; it only collects rainwater and snow water, and that was deemed sacred by the Native Americans, and I think used in the water ritual on the altar stone, as I called it. So I do love ancient America, and I've been to Chaco Canyon, the Toltec Mounds in Arkansas. I've been at all,
Yeah.
well, quite around the different places. The Southwest is very different from the Northeast
You've
in
been to more places than I have in America.
That's what somebody else told me, actually, Ra. When I took the guests to America's Stonehenge, they said, "How come you know all of these places?" I've also been to Cahokia in Illinois and Woodhenge, a timber circle. So ancient America is quite close to my heart. And what I see about America is you have all of these ancient sites on your doorstep, power
Oh yeah, we're
places, but you don't know about them, so you
yep.
reach out elsewhere.
Yeah, we've
And
lost
in
it.
a way, that's kind of um, counterintuitive of where you can work with.
I think near that site, I've been actually. I'm going to be part of a documentary coming up, a new one. I did one on the Balanced Rock already, but we're going to be doing one on the stone chambers of New England and the Hudson Valley here. And coincidentally enough, too, the Balance Rock is in North Salem, and I think Mystery Hill, the America's Stonehenge, is in Salem, New
In
Hampshire.
Salem.
That's interesting. And I think that not far from there is a place called Druid Hill, if I'm not mistaken. There is a place somewhere called Druid Hill
I didn't go. Yeah,
near there.
I was told that, but I didn't have time to go
Yeah,
there because I'm hosting a workshop and I wanted to go to another Salem of Witch Trial fame. So I spent my free time doing that, and I was based in Boston.
I think
Uh,
Druid Hill is somewhere near the Merrimack River.
okay.
Somewhere, if I remember. There's a little book that really cool. I don't think you can buy it. Maybe if you could buy it used, like on Amazon, but I had got it in a bookstore a long time ago. It's Ancient Mysteries of New England, the little one right here by Robert Cahill. And I got this in, when did I get this? 1980? No, 93. I got this in 1993 at the bookstore. And it has a little picture of the Balanced Rock in it, and it has a whole bunch of knowledge about Mystery Hill. The guy was allowed access to it. And really, really cool stuff. And you are the next level to books like this, right? So the new 2025 version of those books on Megaliths, guys, is Secrets of Stonehenge. You guys have to pick this up. Really incredible. This is the new high level, the next step of John Burke's work and people that explore those megalithic sites, because you add another layer to it. And what's very important too is we're going into a new cycle. And you talk about the goddess and the feminine energy a lot. And I think it's very important that the shift that's happening now is there is a feminine shift on the planet transpiring. And I think that you can add a little bit more to that. And before I go, I did want to ask you one more question too, is that do you think that there is a connection to Corona Borealis with Stonehenge? Because at one time it didn't look like that, right? It looked more, it was like a full circle, most likely.
The connection with it is at midnight at the spring equinox, and this is calculated by an astronomer. I had a dream vision about it, and then I got an astronomer to check my thoughts and feelings about it. And at midnight, the equinox would have been directly above Stonehenge, and the connection
Whoa,
is this: is Ariadne rod. I mean, the Corona Borealis to the Celts and those that preceded the Celts, the Bronze Age and the Neolithic that built these sites, to them, Arianrod was the goddess of reincarnation. So at midnight, at the spring equinox, the goddess of reincarnation was above Stonehenge, phase one. That's when it was just a circle of 56 bluestones with a massive chalk wall going around it. Stonehenge has had many different incarnations,
she's like
and
the
that's
spinner and
Stonehenge.
weaver, right? The spinner and weaver one.
Yeah, and so that's the goddess of reincarnation was there. So
Wow,
stage one of Stonehenge had 56 blue stones, no trilithons. That's going to come 500 years later in the
interesting.
time span. So that's Stonehenge phase one, and that's the phase that was linked to the goddess of reincarnation. I also calculated just briefly that if the moon is at a certain angle in its long metonic cycle, of 18.61 years, then the henge bank was so highly polished it would have reflected light on a chalk floor. And Tom Gorey, the curator I was talking about, that whose notes I inherited, he said that it was going to be a chalk floor. So you'd have had like a light show at phase one with the light going right the way down onto the chalk floor. It would have been beautiful by day and by night.
Interesting. Do you find there's a lot of sightings of like plasma orbs in the sky, or some types of reddish type, whitish reddish orbs because I've gotten some in the Hudson Valley here on video over the years. And I don't know if you could call them UFOs because I think they're generated in the planet somehow, like from the planet, even from these megalithic sites connected to. Do you find that there's a lot of these sightings near these sites? And have you encountered anything like this?
Yes, I have. I mean, for example, I've seen a whitish one, an amber one, that quite close to places like Avebury, West Kennet, Longbarrow, Stonehenge, for example. Also, colleagues of mine have seen plasma balls, balls of light, they used to be called,
Yeah,
or earth lights preceding that coming out of mounds. And one was filmed. I was on a show called the UFO Hunters many years ago, and one of the colleagues by me was describing plasma balls coming out of the mound opposite Stonehenge. They're called the Cursus Barrows. So yes, they have long been recorded. And if we look to Irish mythology, holy history of Ireland, then they talk about fairy lights. Yeah, and fairy lights are in all probability going to be what we would call plasma balls of light these days. But that's what
yeah,
they were recording.
yeah, that's so true. Even in Italian, they have what we call the folletto or the folletti. The folletti are, different types of fairy, right? And then you have like the lincetto. Lincettos are certain ones that will come and cause mischief at night. But then you have certain ones that are like light of light. And they can even like make people follow lights and make them wander off a cliff and things like that, right? Like make people get lost in the forest for hours and wander off a cliff or something like that. So yeah, there's all sorts of fairs, and it lines up right with the UK folklore and an Irish folklore. And what's interesting too is a lot of it, the Irish words even go back. I found connections to ancient Sanskrit and Vedic. Like when you have the Banshee, it's really like connected to Ben Sidi. Like Ben
Hmm.
CD is like high psychic powers, like and that's like the Banshee. They're like their sound frequency type powers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the Druid words have like Vedic connections. It's interesting.
It is. It's great to hear about these different sort of connections, and with the Fae, as we would call them,
Yeah,
the fairy folk, they were always considered in Irish and English mythology. Besides, we've got loads of recordings around ancient sites here in my county of Stonehenge and Avebury, but they were very tall. And like you say, they could be very mischievous. They could be, spinning a yarn, as we say over here, spinning you a kind of whole fantasy. It's called the glamour. So the Fae can give you glamour, but that glamour is fake. It's a false vision, so to speak, and that's where we derive our word glamour from. And I did a lecture a couple of weeks ago all on the abductions to do with the Fae round ancient sites here in Wiltshire.
that's very interesting. I mean, you mentioned earlier in the show Sardinia, and Sardinia have literally what they call fairy houses, like some of the Nuraghi and Le Domes de Janus is
Yeah.
one of them. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
they.
been to Sardinia and I went to the House of the Fairies.
Whoa. So yeah, can you explain this to us?
Yeah, well, I was in Sardinia with a colleague called Thomas Sheridan and
Oh, I've heard of him. Yeah.
James. Yeah, we all went together and we did a kind of shows about them. They've been taken off of YouTube since then. But we went to Sardinia and we went right the way down into, you had to walk down the side of a cliff to get to the house of the Fae, the fairies. And it looked like it hadn't been entered for many, many years. And one of my colleagues decided to sound tone because it's really sound resonance chamber, and he started to sound tone. Then we heard a flutter, 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 and realised he'd set off the bats. And just beyond were a whole load of bats,
Wow.
and we had to run out and duck because some of the sites in Sardinia aren't really cared for as much as you'd get sites over here because of the tourism value in
Yeah.
England. Do you see
You
what I
got to
mean?
be
So it's
careful
kind of
too of mosquitoes and all types of stuff over there.
Yeah, yeah, we went walking through a bog, and that wasn't good news. And we went right up to one of the like burial places on a mountain in Sardinia, and that had black magic spells beneath it.
Wow.
And I cleared that. But Sardinia offers with the Nuraghi culture and with the culture that preceded that as well, with the standing stones, etc. Something very pristine is about Sardinia because it doesn't have the mass tourism as other places, be that Egypt, be that England, be that France. So I think Sardinia it's retained something of its antiquity in a kind of pure form that's undiluted at this moment.
I spoke with a man. His name's Luigi Muscus. I don't know if you've heard of him before.
No, I haven't. My
I called him in
apologies.
Italy, and I speak regular Italian, but he speaks like a different dialect, so it was kind of hard for me to understand him. But I was asking him if he could come on in English and do an interview, but he couldn't come on. But he has a book, um, Giants of Sardinia, right? And
Nice.
he has his phone number right in the book, so I had called him like years ago, and he answered the phone. So we talked a little bit, and he was saying that the Giants, I mean, we're talking like between 7 and 10 feet tall. They were preserved and well preserved, like where you can see the tendons in there inside some of these megalith structures until the 1970s, very recently,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then some of the locals were hired to put them on pallets, and then helicopters came and took them out. And Luigi himself used to play with one when he was a kid. They used to go in there, mess with the arm. He said that you touched a little spot on the arm, and one of the fingers would move. Like it was like really like you could see veins in them.
mm. The again, going back to Earth energies, some of the Earth energies, one pattern is called a branch spiral or a habitation spiral. It's a particular kind of formation of a spiral, if you will, and that adds to preserving a body. So quite a few of the old burial places, around the world, yeah, have been placed above this energy pattern that allows for preservation. And in Stonehenge, one even had their hair, yeah, hair,
Wow.
which should have, rotted long, long ago. And the antiquarians were saying they got hair and their teeth are as white as snow. And again, preservation. So I think, again, the ancient world was looking towards the earth and the sky and far beyond and bringing it all together in a formula that cannot fail.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really incredible stuff. Yeah, he talks about that a lot of the plasma balls are seen all over. He calls them walking stars, that are
Nice. What a nice phrase. I like that phrase.
yeah. Yeah, they're all over the I mean, it's not really a well-written book because it's just like he wrote it, it was for meant to be in Italian, so there's like a it's just like has a couple of interviews and stuff like that, but there is a portion where he takes a picture of all the walking stars that he sees
Oh,
there, the
nice.
orbs.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. But according to him, there were giants. I don't know if they're connected to the Phoenicians. I know they were in Sardinia at one point, but when you have even that word Sardinia, that's connected to Sanskrit as well, because even the name of Osiris was Asar. That's his original name, Asar, 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 and a lot of those that means like a king, a ruler, immortal, like a shining one, and that comes from Asura, is the ancient Sanskrit, the Asura and Deva tribes. So a lot of these names do come from ancient Vedic tribes, Sanskrit tribes that were derived and broke down, and spread out, I think, like the
Mm.
to Indo-Aryan, it's connected to a lot of the Aryan tribes and stuff all over the world. And Druids, I think, were a part of that.
Yeah, an Indo-European
Yeah,
culture.
Indo-European. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely, and that has been looked into, by many scholars and many researchers here in England, and there is that correlation. I also think, that different cultures were not separated in the ancient world.
It
I
was a
don't think that
worldwide.
at all.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So you would have places in India influencing England. England would be
It wasn't
influenced
just
at
one culture
Egypt.
influenced it all. It was a whole thing. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So when we kind of think about, oh, everything came from the east and went to the
I
west,
agree.
no, it kind of moved around far more than we give, credit for
Yeah.
sure.
It is like a fool's game to try to pin it to one origin.
Yes. Yes, and even if you look to oxygen isotopes in the Stonehenge environment, you will find that they are coming from near, far, and wide. Because in our first 5 years, if we drink the water in where we live, it registers in the enamel in your teeth. And you can look at the oxygen isotopes of that and discover where somebody was born. And that's what they looked into around the Stonehenge and other prehistoric sites besides, and ascertained they were coming from all over Europe and Egypt and Assyria. Yeah, no, I mean it's the proof is in the teeth enamel of the isotopes.
Yeah, all of them. I mean, they all come from similar. It's so incredible when you get into it because I talk about it all the time. Like Assyrians, that comes right from Asar, like with Osiris. The Persians they worship Ahura Mazda. That's right with the Asura. It's just a sound shift from Asura. They're all warrior, Aryan tribes. They all come from
Interesting.
similar things. Yeah, the Assyrians, all of them, whether it's the Hittites or the Mitanni or the Egyptians or the Assyrians, they all have that, or the Persians, they all have that winged sun.
Yes.
They all use that. They're all connected. It's all connected. You know, it's really incredible. And everybody, once again, Maria Wheatley, The Secret History of Stonehenge, Ancestral Mysteries and Lost Civilizations. You guys can pick that up wherever you buy books. Maria, is there anything else you'd like to share before we close?
Well, just so you know, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for a great interview and for your friendship over the year, over the decade. I can't get over that.
I can't believe
Uh,
it.
and for your work as well, and for the listeners, I hope as well that they've enjoyed the show because it's all about us coming together, and shows like this bring us together, and that's a wonder.
Yeah, I mean, we started doing shows and sharing knowledge and being friends before my daughter was born. My daughter's almost 8 years old, so that
How
puts
is
into
she eight? Oh my goodness.
she's 7 right now, but she'll be 8 in January. So
Wow.
that puts in perspective. So we were talking a few years before she was even born. You know,
Wow. God love
yeah,
her.
it probably is over 10 years now. I know the first time I interviewed you was 10 years ago. So it probably was a couple of months before that where we first started actually talking. But yeah, it's been a long time and it's been a pleasure. Thank you everybody in the chat room for joining us today. Maria Wheatley and the Secret History of Stonehenge. You guys pick that up tonight. Of course, today is sponsored by the Mystical Spiral Store. Thank you everybody for joining us and once again, thank you Maria. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Take care
you.
everybody and spiral